Hey Nerd, here today to talk about military basic training. FYI, kudos if you do qualify, because according to a 2022 study, only 77% of young adults do qualify to go to basic training without a waiver. What does this mean? Basically, there's high rates of obesity, 75%. A lot of people are experiencing the new pediatric morbidity or childhood morbidity, which is mental health crises. And also, people are just overall unfit. Don't be discouraged if you do have one of these issues. Get the waiver and go to training so you can improve the situation. Army basic training. The Navy, the Marines is like a step up, more difficult, a little bit harder to get into. It's a good starting point. A, if you don't know what you want to do. B, if you're a bit of a delinquent. C, if that type who really wants to grow and achieve and become super fit. If you're having issues with your weight, great idea. If you're having issues with your motivation level, probably great idea. If you're just not happy with your current situation, great idea. I was in the National Guard, so we trained with the full Army, and I went to basic training in South Carolina and then AIT in Texas. Before I start to share the experience, if you're considering going or thinking of enlisting, I want to say that I really like the whole idea of pushing a team of people to their maximum limit and working as a team on that level, and also developing individually. Pretty much as always since the dawn of time, we are experiencing difficulties, but that's pretty standard in the world, right? Maybe there's somewhere better, hopefully one day, but for right now, I highly recommend it. It made me super fit. It made me a happier person. It made me more productive. The benefits were absolutely amazing. They paid for me to go back to school, all of these wonderful things. So you've decided to go. What do you need to do next? You've already found your recruiter. You need to get a packing list, but honestly, don't take it too seriously. Make sure you talk to someone to review, because I received a list and I purchased a lot of items and they weren't required. And then I had to lug this stuff around with me for the whole entire time. And a lot of things were confiscated from me as well that technically no one told me was not allowed. It was literally just calcium chews and vitamins. But anyway, they threw probably $100 worth of my things away. Really, it depends on the luck of the draw. It depends on the sergeants monitoring you or the lieutenants taking care of you, really how your experience is going to be. A lot of females had to go to sick call for low calcium and stress fractures. So make sure you eat healthy before you go. Make sure your bones are strong. Please see my other videos. And then you had the purposeful contraband. So people who brought on purpose nicotine or vaping pens or caffeine. You're not supposed to have any of these things. After a trip home for Christmas, a large percentage of the people did try to bring back things that were not allowed. And not everyone got away with it. Some people got something called an Article 15, which is a permanent write-up on your military record. If you can do it without all that, it's worth it to not. And leadership does have the right to dump out your lockers and bags. So the downtime is unimaginable. I would say about 75% of the time I was standing in line, and this was exhausting. Try to bring small reading materials if you can. Military training is well known to make you resilient and mentally strong. However, sometimes it can have the opposite effect and trigger problems, mental health issues. The physical and cognitive demands, as well as the environmental stressors and social stressors, are definitely not for everybody. You have to throw grenades and fire real weapons. This is very dangerous. As you would imagine, the sergeants in charge get very, very angry and worked up, but it is worth it. Only 1% of the eligible population develops the resilience, confidence, and knowledge that comes from basic training. Everyone comes in with different awareness, motivation, and if you do your best, that's all you could do. I did read online you can pass or get through with minimal effort. You can go from couch to basic training completion. However, if you are prepared, the experience will be a lot easier for you. So I recommend working out before you go, and your expectation of how it goes will be probably better. One of the horrible things that happened in my class was we had no hot water for a few weeks. So not only were the showers 2 minutes, I believe it was, but they were freezing cold, so that was not fun. Also, we had a member fall from a high height, unfortunately, and now she has permanent spinal damage and cannot walk anymore. So it most definitely is a huge risk, and you must approach this conundrum if you're going with the ultimate care and decision-making process. The food, honestly, is also a little bit risky. The MREs are extremely salty and they are saved for many, many years. I had an MRE that was over 20 years old once. We slept outside in a cold ditch in the winter. I had bloody blisters on a rucksack march, which they did not let me stop for. The drill sergeants can be overly terrorizing. We have to go in a gas chamber with gas masks on and open the gas masks to see how you react. It's very unpleasant, but that wasn't one of the more horrible things. In the actual unit that I was at, I never deployed or went anywhere. I'm in nursing. At the time, I was a registered nurse, and there's like an extreme shortage. So my boss was like, no, please don't leave. So I wrote my commander a letter and told him that I really don't think that I should go because there's a crisis nursing shortage here every day when I go to work because we don't have enough nurses. So my boss really doesn't want me to go. That was a huge advantage for me and of course the facility and the hospitals that I was working at the time. I was a E4 or a medic, which means that I was kind of listed level. I wasn't leadership, even though I already had degrees. I already had the ability, if I wanted, to come in basically as like a commander or a lieutenant. I had that ability, but when I signed my paperwork, he said, you already have your RN, you can go in high like that, but then you don't get the education benefits. I wanted to go back to school for my advanced practice nurse, so I really wanted the education benefits. Basically, it pays for your entire degree. Actually, what's weird about it, I didn't plan that part. I didn't really like have my heart set on going back to school. It was so weird. I knew there was something else, like some GI Bill where you get a little bit of money. And what he made me kind of think was the better deal was actually to come in low. Was it more of a struggle? Yes. Did I get abused more? Yes. Did I have more to do? Absolutely. These guys up here, the lieutenants and the leadership, they get like the better tents and they get the better food. They get like a nicer, more cushy situation and a little bit better like base pay. But I had all these benefits and like for whatever reason, he basically was like, yeah, go for it. And I was like, okay. I served on an infantry unit as well as a military police unit. The MP unit required that we get tased and or pepper sprayed, which you can imagine was terrible. After being sprayed directly in my eyeballs with pepper spray, I do believe we should always improve and develop as a society. So I have some important things to highlight about. Here is one of our many different rule book instructor guides. So I remember being really frustrated. I had a lot of time on my hands. We're standing around at drill and I started reading through it. Some of the reasons why I was rebelling on certain things that were making us do was because they were flat out against the rules. So the people in leadership were actually like making us do things. For example, applying tourniquets actually to each other to practice, doing IVs actually on each other to practice. And this is like, I guess the combat medics are infamous for this, like they're breaking a lot of the rules. And I was really pissed about that because I understood working in healthcare coming from nursing school already done. I already knew that like these things are very, very dangerous. You can cause like permanent nerve damage in someone. You can cause a deadly infection, sepsis, blood, if you get dirt in someone's vein when you're doing an IV. So I like freaked out. I'm not blaming the army, but a few bad seeds got into power on my unit and a few other units, failures and weaknesses of the unit. So it wasn't me really, like I just wanted a fair deal where we didn't have to risk limbs and all that. So there was this one time where they got us into these like big army Hummer. You probably see them sometimes when they're caravanning all of the soldiers around. We got into those and we were like in the middle of nowhere. I was a tough person even though I didn't act like one or appear like one, but like I did cross country in high school and college, and that really does like thicken your skin and make you like really strong. We used to have to run in the winter, like in the dead of winter with snow on the ground. We'd have races to go for like 5 miles as fast as you can. So like I wasn't a wuss or a wimp, but I was like a real stickler for safety, so like these things would upset me. So we were in this Hummer, and like we had, of course, our helmets on, and then they had other Hummers, and they would like attach them with chains, and then they would, I don't have confirmation that this isn't allowed, but I'm 99% sure it's not allowed. If you go to like the highest leader of the army, so like the president, the commander in chief, or like the big major offices where they have their real true like leadership meetings and decisions, I guarantee these things were not allowed. They attached them with chains, so like a lot of chains attaching them, and then they had one like go and then one like speed ahead, the other one to stop quick, and then like basically like catapulting each other, so like one would break and go like all around it, like for real, in the middle of nowhere, mud all over the place. Individuals didn't realize that they should fear that we were being led by incompetent, non-compliant individuals. And anytime I would be able to like voice why I was so upset, they would someone would say, it's the army, like, oh, that's what we do here, welcome to the army. Like, no, we're supposed to still follow the rules, you know? Like, you're doing yourself and the nation a disservice. And some would say, yeah, war is like that. Like, welcome to what you signed on for. And yeah, they may be right. Am I going to be going on a mission, high level rescue mission? No. Or anything like that. But there's people who do. The Navy SEALs do like underwater tactical like rescues. This is absolutely amazing. The worst things, as you know, that can happen are quite bad. You can have to deploy to another country and see actual combat and see, risk your life basically. And I want to thank you to all of the service members. So, with all this in mind, I think that overall it's a great thing. But again, the basic training itself involved a lot of sprinting early in the morning. It involved a lot of standing. It involved, I do remember one morning before we went to do our like PT in the dark, in the cold, freezing. It was just the worst feeling I had ever had. I wasn't sick and it wasn't like I can't go on. It was just this like giant like I just wanted to crawl into bed, but it was beyond that. It was so bad. Also, too, they kind of like detach you from your current life and your family. So I remember like kind of being very alone and then making friends with other people in basic training and like really having like a sense of camaraderie and closeness with these individuals because we were in the same hellish situation. The food, honestly, the food I would say is not that healthy. Depends. They're getting better with it. They're kind of incorporating more fruit and things. If you're careful, you can make it healthy. You have a lot of choices. So if you choose healthy, you'll be fine. There's, certain places have a lot of salads and they sometimes bring hot meals if you're sleeping out in the woods. That was another time where I was sleeping out in a tent in, I think it was March. Yeah, it was March. So you think it's warming up, right? Oh no. Oh no, no. We slept outside in tents. I was running a lot of the time. So like I was like kind of sweating a lot, but I was like in an ice box, not with not enough layers. It was like 30 degrees out, trying to sleep. I just remember being in the sleeping bag and just like shivering and being like cold and wet and like kind of thinking like if I was to try to sleep I'd probably die, things like that. But really, what has it done for me? It has gotten me a lot of confidence when things that people get worked up about in regular society, like regular people, civilians who did not go to basic training, worked up about things. And I'm like, really? Are you serious? Like, it kind of wouldn't bother me. It really gives you a thick skin. It really gives you a confidence level. Again, the fitness, you can't get that kind of fitness anywhere else because they make you do push-ups and sit-ups constantly in basic training. They're just like, every time you get in trouble, they're like, more push-ups, more push-ups. Also, too, you're not allowed to like drop out unless you have a super good reason. So you can't just say like, oh, I'm not feeling well. You have to like prove it. So like you have to actually get sick or break something or sprain something to get out of it. Basically, like you're doing your long rucksack walks with the big bag and full of a lot of heavy equipment, and you're walking for like a ridiculous amount of miles, 10 miles. Some people who were there were not fit. They were not like used to this. Luckily I had been running a lot, so it wasn't too bad. But yeah, half of us had bloody blisters because we weren't prepared for that, right? We didn't really know what was coming at us. If you didn't bring enough socks, you got sandy and then you got horrible blisters. Or, if you got the wrong boots, your feet were bleeding all over the place. And guess what? That wasn't one of the things things they let you stop for. They did not care if you had, well, you had to go see the medical tent, and if they said your blister was like severe enough, they'll let you sit out. But you know, most of us were. I remember about halfway, my leg like stopped bending, so when I would walk, it was like it was just straight out in front of me. One of my legs, because it felt like my hip, like something happened in there, and it just I couldn't move it. It wasn't really that pain. I don't remember like bad pain, but I remember like I couldn't move it. So like I was walking around with my leg unable to bend. When I came home, I actually still had that. A few days on the couch did heal it up and cure it, and I got back to the gym and I was totally fine. It's interesting how I blocked that out, but yeah, like something weird happened to my leg, and it only warranted like 1 day off of basic training. So as far as specific details, there's some people who even have the stance that they say like everybody should have to go through basic, just because you become kind of like the best version of yourself, really. You become the most well-adjusted if all goes well. You become the most confident, fit, kind of like happy, kind of like cool with things that aren't worth worrying about. But yeah, I encountered some real, you know, terrible people also in the military. Same thing, any job. A couple bad people ruin it for everyone. But when someone has that much power over people and you meet like a real, like basically bitter person or like a spiteful person or a person who doesn't understand, like, or who is kind of like a risk seeker for everyone else, like that gets a little sketchy. You know, I saw some individuals who, you know, they're playing with your life there. And that's why I kind of like shied away from leadership in the military, because I would tell everyone to go be safe and I would tell everyone to, you know, get enough sleep. So me and leadership in the military did not manifest. However, I was at E4, I was into like the fitness part of it. Again, the friendships and the relationship. There's like wonderful people you'll meet, wonderful benefits. You can better yourself in school. You can stay in your whole life and live the military lifestyle, which is really wonderful too. Some of them are able to survive in the woods and they're into hunting a lot, and you know, they enjoy deploying as well as like survival out in the field. It's just like I remember re-signing. I had done 3 years and I signed on for more years, and basically I should not have done that because right away I started absolutely hating it. Granted, I got a lot more benefits. They were substantial. Paying for an actual doctorate degree, that's a lot. I risked my life probably about 4 solid times where I could say genuinely my life was at risk. So most people just dropped off right now. I don't think that happens to everybody. It's preventable if you're ready for it. For example, the night in the woods where I was so cold and I almost froze to death. Some people were fine because they brought enough layers and they weren't like metabolically where I was at that time. It was just a bad concoction of things that made me like suffer that night. And then on top of it, when I couldn't wake up right away because I was finally like sleeping a little when the sun came up, I was like rudely woken up by an individual who, not my personality type, like very pushy, very rude. Isn't this enough? You know, like mean about it basically. Like again, why I wasn't leadership in the army, but some people take that power and they wield it a little too much where it gets to be like a little bit ridiculous. And then the truth is like they kind of like exclude themselves and everyone like secretly talks behind their back and they're like, oh, someone's taking this a little too far. So you got to be careful not to be one of those guys that or girls that kind of like takes things too far with it. And yeah, there were sad stories. Someone in my basic training class committed suicide. Someone was, I think that happens honestly with every class. There's usually at least one suicide or a death or something really terrible like that.